Hey, this is Judith from Days of Judah, and I was hoping to do a reaction to a homeschooling conference that I attended a little while ago. I was hoping to do it much sooner. It's been a month, but life has been busy, and then also, that's pretty much it. Life has been busy. But now that I'm really settled down to do this, actually, correction. I tried to film this video earlier and I just wasn't happy. I would say a bunch of stuff and then I wasn't feeling anything that I was saying. So I think I needed the time. I think I needed a month to kind of think about and process what I experienced, and now I have a simple, neat list of pros and cons. So let's begin. I attended for the very first time the Wild and Free Homeschooling Conference. It was created by a homeschooling mother, Ainsley Armont, I think is how her name is pronounced. She wrote a book called The Call of the Wild and Free, which is a book about the experience and the inspiration to homeschool. I read it and it really spoke to me and got me kind of excited. And I started looking on Instagram and seeing, and kind of just got really interested in what was going on. And when I found out that they were doing a conference, I was like, oh, well, I need to go because this is something that I'm considering. The mister and I are considering for our family, and so I want to immerse myself. I want to really learn. And I guess the background that I will say for my learning style is I have worked for years in higher ed, so that's very much a conference atmosphere. That's how you learn things. You do lunch and learns. It's that type of atmosphere. So a conference to me made a lot of sense. So I wrote down. If you see me looking away, it's because I'm looking at my list. I wrote down my list of pros and cons. I'm a big fan of saving the best for last, so let's start with the cons. One of the first thing that I noticed when I attended, and this particular conference took place in California, in a tiny, I don't know if it's tiny, but in a small town of San Luis Obispo, also known as SLO to the locals. And the first thing that I noticed when I, first showed up on the first day is that there were not a lot of people of color. That is not make or break, but it's definitely something that I noticed. And it's something that I noticed because I've been kind of really intentional about trying to find spaces, homeschooling spaces, that are ones that are focused on people of color, because I think there's a different experience, there's a different lens, because just by merit of being a black person, a black woman, I think I've heard different people give their reasonings and their why for why they want to homeschool. A lot of people of color talk about, the school system not feeling safe or not feeling like it gives a full educational experience to their children because they are black children, or things like that. So for a lot of people of color, this is a big piece when they think about or when they go into homeschooling. So that was one of the first things I noticed. And I was like, oh, we're just we have low numbers here, and then also because I was in higher ed, and because I have done lots of programming, experience and things like that, my brain automatically just started putting things together and thinking about things. And the music was they had music there, and it was lots of like folk music, um, just, just the general ambiance and environment and culture. I don't want to say wasn't black or wasn't one for people of color, but it was very different than I think what a lot of people of color, what our culture is. So, black people can listen to folk music and love it. I just don't know a lot of them. Um, it's just different. So, you know, but I don't want to harp or get stuck there because it's like I said, I want to hit the cons and then talk about the pros. So the next thing is it's expensive. Um, I'm saying this because I don't know how much conferences for an average American who is not through an institution or anything like, but out of your own pocket for your own personal use. I don't know how much conferences run in that sense, but excuse me, this was expensive, um, or at least expensive to me, and it was one night and two, yeah, it was an evening and then the next full day, so that was covered. So I thought it was a little expensive, but I guess it makes sense with having to rent out a space and things like that. And then my next point will make sense for why I'm talking about the expense is it was not a how-to conference. And by how-to, I mean learning how to do a certain thing. My intent, my hope, a big piece for me as I was thinking about the space and going to this event was learning some how-tos. Now, I've learned and I've been doing research about homeschooling before I came to this conference, and I know that there are a lot of different styles. So to say that absolutely everything is going to be covered and you just have like, I think that's kind of super, not even idealist, just doesn't make sense to do something like that. But it wasn't a how-to conference. And for someone that's new and is considering and trying to figure out what makes sense, some how-tos would have been helpful for me. And I also understand that this is a space where not everybody's going to be a newbie. So to have everything like, super, super new, super like, if this is your first time doing this, doesn't make sense. So, but maybe there's a way to do some pieces, some parts of that. Finally, the last thing that I will say that was a con was, and this is once again for my background, there was no opportunity to give feedback. Most of the types of conferences that I've been to, there's like usually like a survey or something where you talk about, different sessions that you attended, what worked, what didn't work, you give feedback. And it's the opportunity for the creators of that space to strengthen what's working, improve what isn't. So feedback is always important, and there wasn't an opportunity for that. So those are the cons. Now moving on to the pros. It was encouraging. I initially thought it was kind of weird well, not weird, but I just really like noticed when I was chatting with people online, because I went by myself, so I made friends. But I was chatting with people online. Is this your first time? You ever been to something like this? And individuals that had been, just that was the main thing that they said. Oh, it's so encouraging. It's so, and I was like, okay. But in all truth, it is. And I know I gave cons, but I want to take this moment to also talk about the strengths. This this event was 850 something women strong, or something like that. So this is not a joke. This is not this is not, trying to see if something is worked. They've figured out some sweet spot in terms of homeschooling mothers. And that's the other thing. It's focused particularly for homeschooling mothers. So they really have been doing this for some time. They've built up quite a base. So it's working, and it really is encouraging. There's something wonderful about being in a space with people that are veterans that have done this for a long time, for people who have their children have graduated and had go on to have meaningful lives, not only just not only in the work world, but just as people. They have come out to be well-rounded, healthy, strong, level-headed people. And I think that is the hope of of parents. I'm going to sneeze. I'm trying not to sneeze. I think it's going to happen. That's the beauty of a pause on your video. You can pause it and sneeze. Okay. So yeah, so it was really, really encouraging to see people that have done this for years and years and years, and just come and speak to you and speak to some of, especially as a person who's new and who's nervous, speak to some of your insecurities, speak to some of the things, your fears about this. So that was it was definitely a very encouraging space. The in-person connection, branching off from that sense of encouragement, the in-person connection was important. This is the first, I think, in-person conference or thing like this that I've gone to since lockdown with COVID. So it's been a minute, and it was good to be with other people. It was good. I've been all up in my children's lives. I've been all, and we've just been enmeshed together. So to be in another space, I miss them, but it was good to be in another space away from them with other women and mothers, and talking about our experiences, and just so the in-person connection is really important, was really, really wonderful. And then finally, some really, really powerful speakers. Now, going back to the fact that I said that there weren't a lot of people of color, they did have some speakers of color, and they were on point. They made me feel really excited to be a person of color in that space, because I was like, wow, look at this representation happening here. This is the truth right now. This is authentic. I feel proud. I feel good. So the speakers that were there, that were women of color, were just excellent. And then the speakers in general were really good, and was definitely worth the time and the energy. So yeah, it was definitely a cool experience. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I had that experience. Now, would I do it again? Because the thing that I discovered is they're having another conference um, again in September. Would I do it again? For September? Probably not. Um, because I just, well, for one, I just want time to just, um, try out homeschooling things and things like that. And then also, since I know it's not a how to space, I'm not necessarily in a rush because I'm just my personality. I'm a learner. I like to go somewhere and learn things and exchange ideas and be talking and tossing it up a little bit. So um, I don't feel at this point. I don't feel the need to go again in September. That said, would I go again? Next year, or maybe like sometime in the future, maybe it's a possibility. It is a possibility because, like I said, that in-person connection with other mothers is really really key and important. um so I think I would be open to that. I would love to see them um explore, um like, or just have feedback, because I would love to see when people have the opportunity to speak about what they like, maybe what they would like to see in the future, how they respond to that, and what kind of changes are made. I would love to see that. So it is, it's a really cool, powerful space. The Wild and Free Homeschooling Conference was a cool and powerful space. It is a space that is unique, definitely. Um, and I could see myself doing it again. When? I don't know, but I could definitely see myself doing it again. I don't know if this is helpful to anyone, if anyone has heard about this conference and is considering it in the future. If you have questions, reach out. I'd be happy to answer more specific questions. But yeah, I went and it was definitely an experience, and I'm glad that I had it. So I'm Judith. This is Days of Judah. Have you gone to any conferences? Are you involved in any homeschooling things that are either for encouragement or for learning? I would love to know. I mean, really would love to know because I'm trying to learn myself. Be well and have a good night.